There was an invisible tension in the air, as if time itself was holding its breath in anticipation of the inevitable. The stars stood still over Egypt that night, silent witnesses to what was about to unfold. No sound of celebration, no singing, no laughter echoed within the walls of the Egyptian homes. The animals were restless, and even the priests, those once confident in their rituals and magical formulas, were now at a loss for what to expect. A sense of impending judgment hovered over everything. After 9 devastating plagues, one final word from God would be spoken. But this time, there would be no more warnings, no negotiations, no promises of reversal. The decree was sealed. The 10th plague would not strike the food, the livestock, the rivers, or the skin. It would go straight to the heart. It would be the deepest wound of all, the death of the firstborns. Why was this the final plague? Why strike at the eldest sons, the heirs, the first fruits of every family? And what does this extreme decision reveal about divine justice, human stubbornness, and spiritual liberation? The announcement was made by Moses in front of a defiant Pharaoh on a night that seemed endless. This is what the Lord says: "Around midnight I will go throughout Egypt. Every firstborn son in Egypt will die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh who sits on the throne, to the firstborn of the female slave, and the firstborn of the cattle. There will be loud wailing throughout Egypt, worse than there has ever been or ever will be again." This was not just a punishment, it was the culmination of a cycle. It was God's definitive response after offering Egypt, through each of the previous 9 plagues, a chance to retreat, to reflect, to change. But with each warning ignored, Pharaoh chose to keep his heart hard. Now, the very cycle of life and death would be touched. Following divine instruction, Moses ordered the Hebrew people to prepare a special meal that night. A lamb was to be slaughtered, and its blood spread on the doorframes. Inside, families would eat the roasted lamb with bitter herbs and unleavened bread, dressed and ready to leave at any moment. This was no ordinary meal. It was a covenant, a sign of faith, and preparation for a final departure. Outside, the darkness grew heavier. The sounds were muted, and then, as the night reached its deepest point, an invisible presence moved through every street, every palace, every shack. What had been silence turned into lamentation. Screams pierced the night like knives. From the throne to the poorest homes, mothers threw themselves over the lifeless bodies of their sons. Fathers ran in desperation through palace halls, trying to understand what had happened. No Egyptian household was spared, none. This was not merely physical death, it was a public exposure of the empire's impotence. The Egyptian magicians who once attempted to imitate signs were now silent. The gods who promised protection said nothing. No amulet worked. No prayer stopped the decree. For the first time, Egypt was on its knees, and it realized that life belongs to a power far greater than thrones, armies, or traditions can control. While Egypt wept, the Hebrew people remained in silence. Inside each home marked with blood, there was peace, there was awe, there was the awareness that something supernatural was taking place. The blood on the doorposts was not just physical protection, it was a mark of obedience, a covenant with the divine, and a reminder that liberation always demands faith. In that same night, Pharaoh urgently summoned Moses and Aaron. There were no more boasts, no more denials, no more demands. There was only a broken man, defeated by the reality of judgment. He said, "Get up, leave my people, you and the Israelites. Go, worship the Lord as you have requested. Take your flocks and herds, as you have said, and go. And also, bless me." It was the end of an era. The enslaved people had defeated the most feared empire in the world without lifting a sword. Their weapons were obedience, faith, and divine intervention. Their victory began with the reminder that even the hardest hearts have a limit, and that justice, even when delayed, is certain. The 10th plague marked the birth of a free nation. More than that, it marked the first Passover, a lasting covenant between the Creator and his people. The sacrificed lamb, the blood on the doorposts, the hurried meal, all of it pointed to a deep spiritual pattern that would echo through generations. But what does this story teach us today? How often do we harden our hearts in the face of clear warnings? How many times do we ignore signs of change, hoping life will return to normal, while God is inviting us to leave behind the slavery of old patterns? The 10th plague is a mirror. It reveals the cost of pride, the limit of human resistance before the sacred, and the price of refusing to hear the voice of truth. Not all losses in life are tragedies. Sometimes they are invitations to freedom. Sometimes they are the last call before the crossing into something new, but it takes sensitivity to understand, faith to obey, and humility to change. If this story spoke to you, if at any point it touched your soul or lit a spark in your heart, I invite you to subscribe to this channel. Here, every narrative is a bridge between sacred history and your personal spiritual journey. Turn on notifications and continue with us as we explore the mysteries that still echo through the eternal pages of time.